All right, real quick video, Israel. Giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai by Hashem Rakakadash. Barakatay Hawa, Barakatay Hawa Shai, double honors to the apostle, elders, bishops, great millstone. Most salutations to the brother teaching the word for the hopeful elect, soon to be the elect, most high will, to the hopeful extended elect, shalom blessings. So when it comes to so-called white man, it has nothing to do with the Bible and nothing to do with prophecy. You know, when it comes to Christian, these anti-Christians of these churches, these theologians, uh, have nothing to do. And by the way, theologian or theology got to do with the study of God, but it doesn't. Um, it's not saying. It doesn't mean that you are a believer of God, and it doesn't mean that you are have full knowledge of God. So, when it comes to so-called white man, everything is metaphoric and symbolic, and they tend to always separate the spiritual from the physical, which, you know, it is a different thing. It's, they play a different role, but it also says in the scripture that the spirit is in man. So, you can't do all this wickedness and then die and then be a spirit and say, well, I'm not going to be held accountable for what I did on earth because I'm a spirit now. It doesn't make any sense. It says it's a spirit in man. So what you do in the body with your spirit is going to be accounted for. And it talks about that in the scriptures. It even says the spirit of the prophets are subject into the prophets. So, when they talk about Satan, they make people believe that he's just a spirit. It's a spiritual demon, Satan, of course, but it's a physical counterpart of Satan. And these so-called white people, even the ones that tend to make themselves scholars or call themselves scholars, they want to make people believe that Satan is just this spirit that can go inside, anybody, that that he doesn't. There's no true calling out Satan on the earth. He could just be anybody, anywhere. Um, Let me get this scripture right quick. Job 9:24 said, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked." It didn't say some men. It didn't say, that broken up in portions that, the wicked will get this portion and then the righteous will get this portion, and, the atheists will get this portion, and like all these, uh, what would you call it? These terms people go by, these, names, organizations that people go by, are made up organizations, made up terms, you know. And like I said, you could be um, a doctor, and you could be and live in America, be born in America, and they say, "What are you?" And then he might say, "I'm an American." If he's from a different country, and then uh, other times he may say, "Well, what are you?" It depends on what you're talking about, of course. He might say, "I'm a doctor," you know. But you can have a lot of titles, man. But you are who you are. You could be called many names, but you are this one thing. Like, everybody's a being. Nobody denies that. You know, um, whether what race you're from, you're still a being because you're being. You've been brought forth to be. So you're a being. what kind of being is a different story. So we gonna go with the facts of what things really are. So when the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, well, there is the wicked, and the earth is given it. So you got to do your research and say, well, and it doesn't take much. You just think about it really, and you say, well, who is running the earth? Who is the earth giving it to? Um, and then you be like, well, who's the top men of the earth that controls everything? Um, from the money, control the lives of people, or the direction of you know of the citizens in every country of this earth, that has full power, military power, and it's the so-called white man. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, if not where and who is he? So we go through the scripture pretty often, um, and he covered up the main judge, Yahweh Shai. He covered up the angels. He's the covering cast. He tended to change history, lied about history, you know. During the time of the Renaissance, you had something called iconoclasm, where he destroyed a lot of images of who were the people of God, which were the Negroes, Latino, and Native Americans. So these earthly fashionable things, these earthly events that happen, this history that we experience, you know, when it becomes the future, we look back on the history and things that we have gone through, things that we've seen. And I'm talking about every man pretty much. But, the key men of this earth is the Most High's children, his own people, his elect. But if you have look at it, the broader scope, you include all men and then the experiences that men have on the earth. Well, all men don't rule the earth. All men don't have the earth in their hands. Um, all men don't go to the levels of this kind of power to do this, and the power and the might to protect these lives and protect their own resources and their own things that they create in their own circle. Uh, being the elite men, but the so-called white man. You know, and it said, let me see. I went to another scripture. So they butcher the scriptures and they lie about the scriptures. There's a scripture that I pulled, just use an example, that it says Satan was bound for 1,000 years in prison. You know, um, and then they go. I looked at the chat GPT, and they say, well, Christian, when it talks about spirit, it talks about anything of the heavens is talking about, uh, I mean, when you talk about anything of the heavens, you talking about what is spiritual, and that's not true. It's a physical heaven, you know. Um, it's a such thing as heavens in the scriptures. The heavens being on fire. So you have heaven on earth. There's a song by a young lady. I forget when it came out. She was young when it came out. She said, "Ooh, heaven is a place on earth." It's, it's a song, and she was right. Heaven is a place on earth. The white man is in his, heaven right now. And it talks about physical examples of like these type of men, these type of beings not being in trouble like other men. They live in different places, high places. The whole orchestration of the Most High's creation is, done in the fashion of how men were created. It even says in the scriptures that I think in Proverbs it says, I think it's 6:14. Most High, 16:4, I think Most High made the wicked for the day of evil. He made the wicked for the day of evil. Go to it right quick. Proverbs 16:4, the Lord hath made all things unto himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil, man. So you be like, well, who's doing these things? Who is the wicked? Well, it could be anybody. No, that's not true. Who's doing these things on earth? Like I just read that scripture. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. And you be like, well, if you think about it and think about it in the right way, you say, well, there's one people ruling uh, the earth. And even in the Bible, the format of the Bible and these events that the Israelites have suffered through time dealing with their enemies, it it definitely implies that you know the human makeup is of different levels to how they play out, even as a nation, the role that they were given, the lot that they were given. So you had Israelite as a nation suffering under these other nations. It was never a time where Most High mixed all man and said, well, my children is everybody. It was always still the Israelites suffering under these people, under these heathens, under these wicked men. So today you try to paint a picture, and you kind of, if they try to do it metaphorically or spiritual, well, you have to make sense out of that to how it ties into what's going on earth with men in the physical. And Most High said that in Romans 1:20, he said, all things are made. He made all things, and he said the invisible things are clearly made, which was one of my favorite scriptures. He said that the visible things are clearly seen by the things that are made. So you have different races on earth, and you have those different races that play a part as our enemy in Psalms 83. So you still have that today. You still Those people are still intact today. Like they're still their own nation. They're still their own people, and they still bring us hell. They still bring us, um, you know, a mockery and what's and you know regarding who we are as a people. You know, as Israelites, so-called Black, Latino, Native Americans, we even have that byword stigma, amongst these nations. Like I said, our curses would be. So, when it said Israel would go into captivity, and enemies shall be sent against them, it didn't say that we were gonna, you know, um, they were gonna be nice guys. It even says they would not regard the young or the old. It didn't say that they would turn the cheek and they would eventually wake up and become good people. You know, it never said that the Most High was, eventually going to forgive Esau and, you know, basically allow him to be in the kingdom. Uh, it never say. I don't know how they changed the story of the Bible and stories of the Bible, which are true and evident. Um, so you have the Most High that made even the wicked for the day of evil. So when you mention the wicked, it gotta be somebody, because it says the earth is given to the hand of the wicked. Everybody does it. The so-called Black, Latino, Native American, they don't rule the earth. The earth is not given into their hand, and you see their land got stolen, even in the besiege of Jerusalem back then, and even to this day on the soul of America when they came over here and slaughtered our people. So so when it describes things in the Bible, and you can't relate, you can't have everything relate to metaphoric or spiritual, you know, references or terms, man. It plays a part right here on the soil of the earth. It plays a part right here in the body of our being. And like the what it say in the scriptures also, I ordained you to be a prophet. Jeremiah 5:1 and 5, I think. I formed thee in the womb. I ordained you to be a prophet to the nations. So before you even came forth and were born, you had a lot, and you had something that Most High created you and made you to be something before you even knew. So these devils talking about, well, yeah, Satan, yeah, he's this mystical. It's a mystical creature. It's a spiritual creature or some spiritual phantom or some or ghost or some, and no, that lets they're trying to get the steam off of their back from people finding out that they're the Satan, and then they call themselves Satanists, and well, the cat's out the bag, so they, I don't really believe that they're bothered by being called Satanists or bothered being called the wicked. They actually really love being the wicked, and they practice these things and these wicked, evil uh, events, and even being wicked-minded to their satisfaction, to encourage others to be wicked also. So I don't have no problem being the wicked. So when we say the so-called white man is the wicked, well, you'll have some of them so-called Christians, the ones that believe they're Christians, that just, believe a lie from their father, because it says that they were gonna, pretty much paraphrasing it, they're gonna realize that they inherited lies from their father. So a lot of times, it even says when they do good is they do it unwillingly. So a lot of times they believe that I have to play a role to be a Christian. I have to, you know, and and really when they find out that they're not the chosen, which they are now, they're gonna be go full devil mode, man. They're gonna go full wicked mode. Like, fuck it, I'm just get out my shotguns and my 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 artillery and shoot every Negro, Latino, Native American I see. I'm just giving a racial kind of example, because they, in all actuality, they hate us. But uh, when the time comes with Jacob's trouble, you'll see it come out of them. You can have like I said, damn, slip. I mean, tripping on my words, but I gave an example of you could live by a so-called white family for years and years, and then all of a sudden, you know, y'all fight over a parking spot, or somebody, some that got to do with property or what have you, or any just being have something to do with as a neighbor. Uh, they'll call you a nigger. They'll call the cops on you, and they'll hate you forever because that one trespass. When it says forgive your brother, forgive him many trespasses. So you know, a lot of this uh, devil wickedness is in them is suppressed because they feel like they have to play a role um, of being a Christian, but they don't have to play that because we know they're wicked, and they're not going to live any better than they live now. If they're the wicked, they're still going to be rich until the Most High destroys them, till the Most High takes them down. But you see, the wicked, the earth is given to their hands, and they're rich and powerful with military might. So being a good Christian for them doesn't mean anything, man. They're rich no matter what. But on our part, we're in the curses and a lot of things affect us because we're at the bottom and we're in the curses. So when you look at it for what it is, the reality of what it is, who Satan is, who the wicked is, and they're not different. They got different terms. Different names for Satan. You know, um, and you got to pinpoint who he is because it's definitely a role played in the human form of these spiritual entities. The spirit is in man. So if a wicked ass spirit, a wicked Edomite spirit, a wicked spirit, Satan, and he's a wicked Edomite from before when he was cast put into the womb, fulfilling his lot, because there's such thing as reincarnation. Then he'll come back as an Edomite as he once was, and through the loins of his father. Then that spirit is still in there. That spirit is still, you know, coming back in its lot. Just like it said, the spirit of prophet is subject to the prophet. So, yeah, we're going to call Satan out for who he is on the earth, the wicked for who they are on the earth. And it's the so-called white man. Anyway, hope it is everyone to the next video. Shalom.